Hey/X/. Let me tell you about the time I came across a prehistoric beaver. For the record. 1. I am a long-time lurker, first-time poster. 2. This is pre-written, I am posting this from my phone, and I will try to green text everything except for important descriptions. 3. This is not a foreskinwalker thread. To be frank, I don't even believe that skinwalkers are real, nor do I believe in the existence of Sasquatch, aliens, or anything like that. 4. Before anyone asks, I will not disclose the exact location this took place. The retards here have a bad habit of shooting anything that breathes, and I would hate to see them kill what I had come across. With that out of the way, here's my story. It all takes place on an island in the smack middle of a 51-mile-squared lake somewhere in East Texas. The island is 45 minutes from shore and has a landmass of about 2 square miles. When I had learned about this lake, 4 of my friends and I had planned to spend 3 full days in the woods. We were going to paddle out to the big island, and get ourselves into some typical /K/tomfoolery. Unfortunately, I ended up going alone. Which wasn't too disheartened because I brought along my 9mm slight-hand Wesson and 2 mags loaded with hollow points. The day my trip began, I used an old metal canoe to get to the island. It's dented to all hell and isn't anything particularly fancy. Pic related. When I arrived at the island, I hopped out, set up camp, then decided to do a bit of exploring. Most of my photos were taken as soon as I had arrived because I was scared that it would die, leaving me stranded in the case of an emergency. It wasn't like my phone was fully charged either. I played music the entire car ride there, which drained my battery significantly. Anyways, while exploring, I noticed that the island's flora was larger than usual. Bristle, thistleweeds were between shoulder and head height, and the stalk was a little bit thicker than a shovel's handle. The oak trees were ginormous. They had to have been 150+ years old. It wasn't just the flora either. The same applied to the insects, snakes, and other usually small critters. I saw several water moccasins that were well over 6 feet long. Slugs as long, if not longer, than 6 inches. None of which is anything particularly special. They were all just really big in comparison to their mainland counterparts. I did see larger normal-sized critters as well. I accidentally startled a doe, which in turn scared the crap out of me, and came across tracks from at least 4 or 5 different deer. I also found a hog skull and the skull of some kind of cat. It could have been from a domestic cat that swam to the island, but I highly doubt it. The last kind of animal I encountered, and the one that is the most important to my story, are the island's beavers. Not many people know this, but they are indigenous to Texas. I grew up seeing them from time to time when my dad would take me to local lakes and creeks to fish. So it came as no surprise to me when I stumbled upon some beaver tracks and an insane amount of felled trees on the island. What did surprise me though was the time I was cooking some camp cuisine and heard a beaver chomp down on a tree. It scared me half to death. It sounded like someone taking several comically large bites out of an apple. Yet no matter how much I searched, I could not locate the source of the sound. However, you wouldn't be hearing about this if it wasn't for the time I actually saw one of these beavers. It happened on day 3. During the previous 2 nights I called my wife because I had been missing her. Each of the calls lasted well over an hour and 30 minutes, which drained my phone battery even more. The morning of day 3 I called her to tell her my plan. When I planned on leaving and what time I should be getting home. Shortly after the call, my phone died on me. I got a little shaken up because of this and decided that I should explore all of the parts of the island I hadn't already explored, then pack up and leave. Fast forward a couple hours. As I was strolling through a fairly wooded part of the island that is dotted with various dense thickets of shrubbery, I heard a bit of movement coming from one of the thickets, which made me jump. After the initial shock, I got real quiet. Because my previous encounter with the deer that scared the crap out of me, I wanted to catch a glimpse of a deer grazing or just chilling before it notices me. In my mind I'd be showing the deer who's really the king of the woods. Which sounds stupid looking back, but I can't change the past now. Anyways, when I snuck to a considerable distance, I slowly started to circle around the thicket where the noise was coming from. After taking what felt like an hour to get to a spot where I could see the other side of the thicket, I caught a glimpse of a huge brown furry thing. It was about the size of a black bear, which made me assume that it may have been, well, a bear. Having never been around, much less seen a bear, I silently freaked out and backed away, then rushed up the nearest climbable tree. I knew that bears are more than capable of climbing up trees. I thought I could get the drop on it by just unloading all of my ammo into the thing. After calming myself down, I pulled out my binoculars and watched this thing meander for a bit. I quickly noticed that it didn't move like bears do in nature docs, nor was it shaped like one. It looked like a giant rat-bear hybrid. It was way too rotund, its back legs were far more prominent than its front legs, its face looked so strange, it bore huge fangs, and had a massive tail. I remember thinking to myself, this bear is seriously effed up. Eventually it made its way around the side of thicket that was closest to me, which gave me a way better look at this thing. At this point I realized, this wasn't some kind of mutant rat-bear thing. It just wasn't a bear. It was a giant beaver. Other than its tail, it looked exactly like a normal beaver, just astronomically bigger than any of the ones I had seen. The tail was thinner than it should have been and was furry. Not flat like other beavers' tails. I couldn't believe what I was seeing and even pulled out my phone to take a picture so that I could show you guys. I didn't realize that it had died earlier that morning until I tried turning it on. With no way of documenting this animal or getting some kind of proof, I decided to just enjoy my encounter with the unexplained, no matter how confused I was. I sat up in the tree watching this giant beaver for what seemed like forever before it disappeared back into the woods. When it did, I immediately climbed out of the tree and ran back to camp. I packed my things up and headed home as soon as I was able. Once my phone had charged via car charger, I ranted and raved to my wife about what I saw. She sort of believes me but thinks it may have been a trick of the eye or something like that. I seemed so certain about my finding that she didn't want to shoot me down. And after doing a fair bit of research, I realized that what I encountered was some kind of Castoroids, a giant prehistoric beaver. I'm not sure if it was a direct descendant or a relative of the species, but I know for damn sure it isn't like any beaver I've seen before. Anyways, that's my story. That may sound anticlimactic because I didn't shoot a Wendigo with mimicin or whatever. But it's a true story. Anybody I tell this to does not believe me, so I was hoping you robots could share similar megafauna experiences/encounters. I want to be able to tell my wife and my family that other people have encountered similar things that I have. That way they'll stop trying to convince me that I was dehydrated, etc.